They're banning the operations of Russian oil companies like Lukoil and Rosneft, and they're trying to control our trade, our investment cooperation, and our military technical ties with our largest strategic partners, like India, for example, and other BRICS members. They're banning the operations of Russian oil companies like Lukoil and Rosneft, and they're trying to control our trade, our investment cooperation, and our military technical ties with our largest strategic partners, like India, for example, and other BRICS members. India is also interested, and its chairmanship program includes issues of food security and energy security. Energy security will be very interesting to consider in the context of the actions the Trump administration is taking in the global energy sector. This is also an issue associated with absolutely practical opportunities and practical implications. And India is paying increased attention. India has assumed the BRICS presidency, and the country has already outlined its key priorities. These are sustainability, innovation, cooperation, and sustainable development. To what extent do these priorities resonate with your vision for the development of international cooperation? What role does the global information space play? After all, each of us lives with so much information today. Looking ahead a little, what results do you personally expect from India's chairmanship? The priorities of each BRICS chair have traditionally demonstrated continuity. I have listed the initiatives launched during our 2024 chairmanship. They are all related to alternative platforms and mechanisms for servicing the global economy. They continue to be discussed and further developed, as was the case last year when Brazil held the chair. This is also happening now that the reins of power have passed to India. India is paying special attention to the fight against terrorism, which remains, unfortunately, a pressing issue. We are seeing terrorist attacks in and around Afghanistan. And in the territory between India and Pakistan, between India and Afghanistan, and between Pakistan and Afghanistan. There are many other areas. The Middle East, of course, including its Asian part. Therefore, this priority is extremely important for us, especially since, together with India, we are actively promoting the UN initiative to develop, it has already been developed, the adoption of a global anti-terrorism convention. We have not yet been able to gather consensus, but that is a different story. India is also interested, and its chairmanship program includes issues of food security and energy security. Energy security will be very interesting to consider in the context of the actions the Trump administration is taking in the global energy sector. This is also an issue associated with absolutely practical opportunities and practical implications. And India is paying increased attention, and we actively support this, to issues of information and communications technology security. In a couple of weeks, I think, or in early March, or, generally, in the next month and a half, a summit on artificial intelligence will be held in India, to which Russia has been invited, and Russia is actively working on the agenda for this event. It is of great importance. Considering that the norms of interaction in the field of dense intelligence between states and the norms for the use of artificial intelligence, AI, technology by each state are only just being formed, this is a fairly serious diplomatic struggle, one that is diplomatic but also has a direct practical dimension. Because these norms will regulate, we very much hope that this will be the case. They will regulate behavior, which also affects security issues. But the transformation currently being observed on the global stage, which began some time ago in connection with the objective transition to a multipolar world, is no longer bipolarity, as it was during the Soviet Union and the United States, the Warsaw Pact and the North Atlantic Alliance, nor unipolarity, which followed the disappearance of the Soviet Union. Instead, multipolarity determines the path of human development. The United States, for many years the engine of the global economy and the regulator of global finance, used the role of the dollar to strengthen its dominant position. It is already losing, objectively losing, its economic influence and its weight in the global economy, while countries such as the People's Republic of China, India, and Brazil are simultaneously rising. The West doesn't want to give up its once dominant positions. Moreover, with the advent of the Trump administration, this struggle to suppress competitors, if you will, has become especially obvious, especially open. In fact, the administration in Washington under Donald Trump makes no secret of these ambitions. We must dominate the energy sector. We will restrict our competitors. Completely unfair methods are being used against us too. They're banning the operations of Russian oil companies like Lukoil and Rosneft, and they're trying to control our trade, our investment cooperation, and our military technical ties with our largest strategic partners, like India, for example, and other BRICS, and they're trying to control our trade, our investment cooperation, and our military technical ties with our largest strategic partners, like India, for example, and other BRICS members. So, there's a battle going on to preserve the old world order, which was based on the role of the dollar, based on the rules the West devised and implemented in the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. In our case, one of the main tasks of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our foreign policy is to create and ensure the most favorable external conditions for the country's internal development, economic, social, and industrial, to ensure the growth of citizens' well-being. It is clear that in the context of such a global war unleashed against us, well, of course, everything I said in answer to the first question means that in a situation where the West is losing its hegemony but continues to cling to the institutions created to ensure this hegemony, institutions that, by definition, can no longer reflect the real state of affairs and the fair nature of. Relations at the international level, the creation of new structures that will serve international economic, investment, trade, and transport relations is inevitable. We are not advocating for the dissolution of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, or the World Trade Organization. For many years, we have been pushing for reform of these institutions, so that, right from the very inception of BRICS, the BRICS countries, and these were and remain the fastest-growing global economies, trading powers, would receive voices and rights in all these Bretton Woods institutions commensurate with their real importance in the global economy, in global trade, and in global. Logistics matters. The West is categorically trying to prevent this. The dollar, it's not us, as President Putin has said repeatedly, isn't us abandoning the use of the dollar. The US, under Biden, did everything to make the dollar a weapon against those it didn't like. Tariffs, sanctions, outright bans, and even prohibiting some from communicating. And we have to take all of this into account. Therefore, we remain open, just like India, China, Indonesia, and Brazil, to cooperation with all countries, including, of course, with such a major power as the United States. In situations where the Americans themselves are creating artificial barriers, we are simply forced to seek additional, secure ways to develop our financial, economic, integration, logistics, and other projects with the BRICS countries. We held the BRICS presidency 2 years ago, when the summit was held in Kazan. A number of Russian initiatives were put into action there. These included alternative payment platforms, mechanisms for settlements in national currencies, the creation of reinsurance opportunities for trade within BRICS and between BRICS and its partners, the creation of a grain exchange, and the creation of a new investment platform. This isn't meant to spite anyone, especially the United States. It's simply because the United States tightly controls all processes in the areas I mentioned and demands unilateral concessions. It was there that President Putin coined the term Greater Eurasian Partnership, which is based on the objective trend that Eurasia is the largest continent in the world, the richest, the fastest growing, especially considering the Pacific part of Eurasia, which is the most populous. And, importantly, it's a continent where several great civilizations arose and continue to exist. These include the Chinese, Indian, Arab, Persian, and Russian civilizations. We're unlikely to find the same number of historical processes as in Eurasia in the history of Africa and Latin America. Projects concerning the joint use of the Northern Sea Route. So these processes are underway for obvious reasons. If we're talking about the Eurasian Partnership, they involve countries across the continent. BRICS is a global organization that attracts interest from all continents, already uniting not only Eurasian countries but also many countries in Latin America and Africa. This process will continue. But BRICS provides a framework, an umbrella, if you will, for developing integration processes on individual continents. In the future, BRICS could well become a place where economic, social, and infrastructure development plans across Eurasia, Africa, and Latin America will be harmonized.